Hi there and welcome back. It's Jennifer. Today is completely different for me because I'm only doing one card and it's a short video. Who would have ever thought that happened from me? However, last night I had this card idea as I was trying to fall asleep and I wanted to be able to pull it together quickly to share with you. This is a window shadow box card. So I've done shadow box card videos in the past and I'll link to one here on the top right if you want to check that out. Well, today I added a window to the front. So let's look at the completed card so you know the direction we're headed. When you take the card out of the envelope, it looks like a typical card. It has a window showing to the inside and a cute little scene using some lawn fawn products. When you open it, it pops up to create a little shadow box inside with more. So it's like a little surprise inside. This is a fun technique to do, especially when you have lots of small images like this set. So this is the Lawn Fawn Seasons Tweetings stamp set. It's 6x8 and there are coordinating dies available. This set is exclusive to Simon Says Stamp as part of Stamptember. Now this is one of those that will sell out quickly. So if you're interested, please check it out right away so that nobody gets upset that it sells out because it doesn't go back in stock. It's a limited time thing. All of today's card images are from this set. Okay, so let's start the card. You'll need two pieces cut to 5.5 by 8.5 inches. I recommend a heavyweight white cardstock. You can just take an 8.5 by 11 sheet and cut it in half and you'll have your two pieces. Let's start with one, we'll set the other aside. This one you're going to score right down the middle at 4.25 inches. This is the exact same way I create side folding note cards. Many of you do this too. And then you can crease the fold and you have a folded note card. Well, for this one, we're going to cut a little bit off of one side. That's what makes this shadow box card work. So from one end, I'm cutting a 1/2 inch off. So what you'll end up with is a 4.25 by 5.5 inch note card, but the back flap is a little bit short, a 1/2 inch short. This is the outside of our note card. I wanted to have a heart window on the front of my card, so I'm using a Hero Arts Hearts Infinity die, and I'm placing it kind of off to the right and a little bit low. I want to make sure it's not too low because you'll want to hide the pop-up shadow box inside, but I wanted it to be off-center just for a little bit of interest. So I'll open this up and run it through my die cut machine. I'm using a Gemini Junior today, but you could use whatever die cut machine you want. Now it's time to add some images to this. Off screen, I stamped, colored, and die cut a few of the images from the Seasons Tweetings stamp set. I'm using a little bit of tape runner to adhere these to the front of the card. I'm only using a little bit so that I can move them if I change my mind later. I will, once I'm happy with where it's placed, add strong adhesive, and you'll see me do that at the end. The back of my birdhouse has the marker showing through. So I die cut another birdhouse and glued it to the back so you wouldn't see it on the other side. Now I'm adding a little birdie and a little holly. Again, I just did a little bit of adhesive so I could move it around as you see me do here. We will add strong liquid adhesive behind it later. This is a nice trick if you're not really sure where everything will need to land on the final card. Now it's time to add a greeting to the front. I'm using my MISTI stamping tool because I don't want to mess it up at this point, but you can use an acrylic block if you prefer. I have the message Seasons Tweetings. I'm starting by stamping Seasons, and then underneath it I'll stamp Tweetings. The reason I don't stamp them at the same time is there's a little halo around stamps, so you can't get them super close together, and I wanted the two words to be stacked tightly, as you can see I did here. So that's why I stamped it twice, so once with Seasons, once with Tweetings. All right, so now the front of our card is pretty much done, at least at this point I feel like it is. So let's do the inside, the pop-up or the shadow box feature. This is that other 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock that I had from earlier. I did one score at the 1/2 inch mark. Then I'm doing a second score at the 4.25 inch mark. And a third score at 4.75 inches. And by the way, these are the same measurements I used for my traditional shadow box card that I showed in that other video. So be sure to check that out for some more ideas. I have a few cards in that video. Now I'm just reinforcing those fold lines, just folding them all in towards each other. Once you have these creased, you'll want to cut a teeny bit of cardstock off each end. Now very little. I mean, we're not even talking 1/8 of an inch, just a little bit off each end. You really could skip this if you wanted to, but I tell you, it makes a big difference in everything folding nicely. All right, now if you look from the side, it looks like it's created kind of a box. Okay, so now we're going to flatten this out and create the window that's going to be in the inside of our shadow box. I decided to use a Hero Arts Oval Infinity die. This die is bigger than the heart. You want to make sure this one is bigger than whatever die you use for your window on the front. I'm putting a little piece of tape on there to hold it as I run it through my die cut machine. But first, I want to make sure you don't see the oval die when you put the front of the card on it. You'll take the right edge of the front of the card and line it up with the left Scor line on the back of our card. So line it up right there. I'm just looking. I can't see through that window the oval die, so I know I'm safe. Okay, so now I'll run that through my die cut machine, and there we have the oval that will form our shadow box. You can see it's kind of a fun little shadow box that will be inside the card. So this is what it'll look like, and you can't see it from the front. Okay, so next I wanted to add some blue on the inside. So there's like a soft blue sky in the back of the shadow box. So I'll open up my shadow box piece as you see me do here, and then I'll ink inside there. I put a piece of tape there to mask it off, but you don't need to do that because this is on the back side of the shadow box window, but I just did it anyways. I'm using a Waffle Flower Media Mat to allow me to do some good ink blending on this background. I'm using Tim Holtz Distress ink, and this is Tumbled glass, which is great for a sky. I'm also using a blending brush, and I'm applying an uneven amount. Notice I'm going side to side. This helps to give the look of a cloudy sky. You could use a stencil, you could use stamps. I just wanted to apply a soft amount of blue ink down to look somewhat like a sky, and this did the trick. Once I'm done inking it, I can remove the tape, which again wasn't necessary, and there you can see our soft sky inside our shadow box. Next, we need to create our little light bulbs that will stretch across the inside of our shadow box. I die cut several from white cardstock and find it best to do the die cutting of this image before the stamping. The reason is when you have a long stamp image like this one, this long string of lights, sometimes you'll mount it onto your acrylic block or into your stamping tool at a little bit of an arch, and then your die, which is a set position, won't fit it. So it's best to die cut first for long images like this, and then stamp on the die cut. So I have a negative space of one of the string of lights die cuts. I put a little tape in the back face up so the die cut could be held in place as we stamp on it. So I lined up the stamp, and now I can stamp on each of my white die cuts. Once one is stamped, I just take it out with tweezers and pop in another, and then I'll stamp on that. I do this quite often with regular stamped images. I'd rather cut a bunch of dies without having to line them up, and then do this to make sure the stamping is nice, especially when I'm doing multiples. But when you have long images like this, it's really important to do so you can make sure your stamp lines up with the die cut. So I have several here that I added some quick coloring to, and we're going to glue these string of lights so they're stretched across the back of our oval opening. You can see they're too long, so I'll cut them short, and I'll have some extra pieces left over that I can use on another card. I'll put a little bit of liquid adhesive on the two ends here on the top of the image. Then I can glue this to the back of our oval opening. Now there are many different ways you can do this, but I thought this was the easiest, and I could easily add several strings of lights behind the opening. So you could stretch sentiments across this, bigger images, whatever you want, but the string of lights seem to be the perfect fit for this card. So here is our little shadow box piece. Let's close it up just to see what it looks like. And there you can see the blue sky showing through. All right, it's time to add our shadow box piece to our card outside. You want to use a strong double-sided tape or strong liquid adhesive for this. I'm using Lawn Fawn double-sided tape and putting it onto that little 1/2-inch flap over here on the left. I'll take the edge of this piece here and line it up with the crease on our note card. The adhesive is facing up right now. I'll hold that flat, close my card onto the adhesive, and now the two are attached. So you'll see all we have to do is wrap this flap into our card. So on this portion here, this large portion, I'm putting some adhesive. It really doesn't matter what type of adhesive here. And then watch, I'll flip this over, flatten my card out, fold along the second score line there. So I'll fold along that second score line. and then close the back of the card onto that. This creates the shadow box card effect. And I show other ways to do this in that other video, so be sure to check it out if you're interested. So there we have our window card in the front that opens to a shadow box. I left a little room down here to write a personal message underneath the oval opening. But let's finish decorating the inside. I thought it'd be fun to add a few more birds since there are a lot included in the set. They're so cute. So I colored and die cut them, and now I'm gluing them to make sure that you can't see them when the card is closed, so that they're a surprise when you open the card. So I put one on the top left, one on the top right, and then I'll put one behind the birdhouse that's on the front. Every time I'll just make sure by closing the card to make sure it's not peeking through the heart window. At this point, I'm happy with where the birds are on the front of the card now. All my pieces on the front, remember I only temporarily adhered those? I'm happy with the placement, so I'm going and putting a little bit of strong liquid adhesive, this is Gina K Connect, and putting it under each of the die cuts. That way I can be sure they stay put. Now this next step was an afterthought. I thought it'd be fun to have the sentiment from all of us stretched across the window on the inside of the card. So I should have done this earlier when I added my little string of lights, but I didn't think of it. So now I have to use some tweezers or my fingers to carefully get in there and add this to stretch from one bird to the other. I could have taken my birds off and tucked this behind the birds and it would stretch across too, but this is kind of how it came together for me. Sometimes you have these last minute things that you want to wiggle in, and it worked out just fine. So now that sentiment stretches across the shadow box also. Now every strand of light should have some sparkle, so I'm using my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen to add some sparkle to each of the light bulbs, and then also to the holly berries on the front of the card. I also decided to add another little bunch of the berries up on the top of the little birdhouse here, just for a little bit more color on the front. So let's look at the completed card. You can see it flattens down nicely to fit in an envelope. When you take it out, it looks like a traditional card with a little window on the front. But then when you open up the card, it pops up, creating a shadow box inside. The nice thing about this card design is you can do this with various stamps and dies. So any basic shape of dies works well for the windows, and any smaller images work wonderful for decorating the shadow box. It was fun to create this little scene here, but you could do this for birthday cake with candles, you could do this with a Christmas tree. Really, the sky is the limit. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this variation on my shadow box card where there's a window on the front. I will have all of these supplies linked below if you want to check them out, and in the middle are a couple other shadow box card videos that you might enjoy. Thanks for spending this time with me. I appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.